Hey there, thrill seekers. Welcome to my video channel. And just a reminder that my podcast, the Hardcore Zen podcast, is back up and on the air and has let's do it European style, three new episodes based on Dogen's essay Busho, Buddha Nature, which I did a whole sort of paraphrase of and did a commentary on my podcast. And also, if you are a Patreon subscriber at any level, you can go and read those. So I made them available on my Patreon page for the people who subscribe to me on Patreon, a little perk for you guys. What else? My blog is up too, and I've been putting new stuff on there. I put 4 chapters of my failed book, The Zen of Godzilla, up there, so you can enjoy those. Also, I will be traveling to Europe, and I'm going to have those dates up on the blog soon, because I'm even a little confused about them. But I'm going to Finland to lead a retreat there. I'm going to Germany to lead a retreat at Benediktushof, which is a place I've led retreats almost every year since 2009 or something like that. I don't remember the first year. Anyway, so there's that, and then I'll be in France doing some promotion for my the French editions of 2 of my books. Sit Down and Shut Up is available in French now, and so is Letters to a Dead Friend About Zen. So I'm doing promotion for those, and I'm talking to people, and I'll see you in France. So I wanted to talk about perception and conception. This is something that Nishijima Roshi talked about that's pretty interesting, and a friend of mine and I were talking about it yesterday, and I thought might be a good topic for a video. It's something I talk about all the time. Thing is, I'm repetitive, so get used to it. But Nishijima Roshi's insistence was that reality is neither what we perceive nor what we conceive. To say that reality is not what we conceive is fairly easy. I think most people who pay any attention to anything at all understand that our ideas about reality are different from reality. I shouldn't say most people. I mean, there's a lot of people who think their own ideas about reality are reality. So, okay, let's give them that. But I think most of us who've come this far and are watching a video channel about Buddhism probably have that bit, locked down. They understand that what they think is not necessarily real. There's a big difference between thought and reality. But perception and reality is another thing altogether. Nishijima Roshi was very insistent that what we perceive is not reality. And let me read a little bit of what he had to say about that. He said, some people think that reality might belong to the area of sense perception. But this idea is also wrong in Buddhism, according to Buddhism. Because in Buddhism, we do not think that what is perceived is reality. What is perceived is just what is perceived. People who are called materialists, or sometimes physicalists, he liked the word materialist, usually make this mistake, and they think that what they perceive is just reality. Therefore, they sometimes call themselves realists. But this idea might be wrong, and their idea comes from their own overestimation of themselves. So they decide that what they perceive must be what's really out there. Generally speaking, what is perceived is always individual and limited inside what is perceived. But reality has to be totally inclusive, like the universe. So we should never identify what we perceive with reality. Reality exists here and now, and it includes ourselves too. When we experience that we exist in reality, we can experience reality throughout our body and mind. But if we are out of reality because of intellectual thinking or because of sense perception, we cannot experience reality. I'm getting bit by mosquitoes. That's my perception, my sense perception right now. And because of this situation, many Buddhist practitioners who want to grasp reality have practiced Zazen. Reality exists in our action, and so by relying on action, or by relying on the practice of Zazen, which is action, even though it is the action of staying still, they could enter reality at once. We can say that many Buddhists have been making their efforts to try to experience reality, which is impossible to express with words, for thousands of years by relying upon practicing Zazen. Some of this dovetails very nicely into this very popular book that I bought months ago and still haven't finished, The Case Against Reality by Donald Hoffman. And even though his first endorsement is Deepak Chopra, I try not to hold that against him. Sam Harris's wife, who's a little better than Sam Harris. But these are what sells books. So if I could get Sam Harris's endorsement, I'd probably put it on my damn book. Anyway, not that that's ever going to happen. But Case Against Reality puts the case forward that, let me see if I can paraphrase this as best I can, that reality is, that our bodies and minds are set up so as to be fit for carrying on life that we live in this world and reproduction and stuff. And so what we see isn't necessarily what's out there. What we see is a construct created in the brain which is a kind of a limited version of what's actually out there. That's sort of what we can handle for what we need to do. And if you want to get really spooky about it, even the brain itself is a part of that same construction. So the idea that we have a head with a brain in it, pumping blood and all this, everything we think we know about physical reality is also a kind of illusion. It's a useful illusion, and we can study the illusion, and we can kind of make predictions about where the illusion is going to go, and so on and so forth, and some of those are useful and some of those are not useful, but in the end it's all an illusion, and we're not perceiving reality as it is, which I think is kind of what Nishijima Roshi was getting at. But maybe instead of trying for me to explain what Professor Hoffman has to say, I'll let Professor Hoffman say it for himself. So here we go, Professor Hoffman.
Right. So most of my colleagues in cognitive neuroscience believe that our senses were shaped by natural selection, that we evolved, and that the selection pressures are such that those creatures that saw the world more accurately had a competitive advantage over those who saw less accurately. And so they were more likely to pass on their genes that coded for the accurate perceptions. And so the result is, after thousands of generations, we're the offspring of those who saw the world more accurately. And so we can be pretty confident that when I see tables and chairs and the sun and the moon and so forth, that I'm seeing reality as it is. No one believes we see all of reality, of course. We only see the parts that we need to see. But that the parts that we do see, we're seeing truthfully. And so I've looked at that from the point of view of the mathematics of evolution, the evolutionary game theory. And we can actually run simulations to see what happens, and we can prove theorems. And we've done both. And the bottom line is that the probability, if our senses evolved and were shaped by natural selection, the probability that we see reality as it is zero. And that means not simply that I don't quite see the shape of a chair correctly, or I don't quite see the colors correctly. It's much deeper than that. The problem is that the very language of space and time and physical objects is the wrong language to describe objective reality. You could not frame a true description of the world in that language. It's not possible.
Okay, so that's basically it in a nutshell. The whole video is about 40 minutes, and it pretty much says all these things that are said in the book. It's a great interview, so go and look at it if you want. So that's the idea, that perception is not reality, and I think that's important to understand. It was important for me to understand, because when I first started studying Buddhism, one of my great fears was that Buddhism was a kind of materialism, that all this stuff, all this sort of negativity about Buddhism was because we were trying to be realistic. And Buddhism, especially in Nishijima Roshi's way of talking about it, talks about realism all the time. And I thought realism was the same as materialism and physicalism. And I thought, okay, well, that's what Buddhism says. And I was very attracted to Buddhism, but I thought, oh my God, that's what it really says. But no, it doesn't say that. It's actually saying something a lot closer to what Professor Hoffman is saying, that our perceptions of reality are not reality. And that, I think, is an interesting way to look at it, that what we perceive is not necessarily what's real, but at the same time we have to deal with it. And this is why Nishijima Roshi falls onto why he gets into this idea of the philosophy of action. And action is much more fundamental than we who do action. You can hear Ziggy the dog barking, I hope, if this microphone is good enough to pick it up. So what Nishijima Roshi's philosophy would say is that the action of barking is more fundamental than Ziggy himself. So Ziggy we don't know what Ziggy thinks, but let's say Ziggy thinks that he is a dog who barks, and that he's a dog first, and that because he's a dog, he barks. What Nishijima Roshi's philosophy would do is turn that all over on its head and say that barking happens, and because barking happens, it creates a dog, and it creates a me who hears it right now, and it creates a you who hours or days later or whatever is hearing a recording of the dog barking. But the fundamental action of barking is the main thing, and maybe this is why we have that whole why does a dog anyway, maybe that's the whole does a dog have Buddha nature thing, and the answer is woof. So actually, I think I made a good point there without even trying. That's the answer to the koan. The koan asks you, does a dog have Buddha nature? And the answer is mu, but if you know the joke, which I've explained many times on this channel, the original pronunciation of the character mu in Chinese, in the dialect that it was spoken when Joshu was alive, was wu. So what the answer to the koan is, does a dog have Buddha nature? The answer is wu. So that's the answer. And the answer is the fundamental action is what's actually real, and that's what the Buddhists are trying to get you to look at. I didn't think I would get there in this video. I kind of improvised that one, so you see what happens when I improvise. Sometimes I work these out before I say them, and sometimes I improvise. This is an improvised one, so there you go. For regular watchers, you can compare and contrast. Anyway, if you want to help me improvise more, and you want to help me get to Europe and be able to eat falafel when I'm there, you can send a donation to my Patreon and PayPal accounts, which are linked at hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. Actually, I should be going the other way, right? hardcorezen.info/donate. That is my only way of making a living, and I really appreciate those of you who support me. But as always, these are provided for free, so if you want them, you got them for free. So don't even worry about paying. If you don't want to pay, or if you can't pay, don't worry about it. But I do thank you who do pay, because that's how I keep going. So we will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bye. Ziggy, what are you barking at? What are you barking at? What's out there? Is there something out there that I should know about and that you're barking at? What's going on? What's going on, Ziggy? What are you barking at?